Okay, I'm gonna be blunt. Any self-respected fantasy action setting that does not have a phenomenal power system is doomed to absolute failure on many freaking levels. There is no excuse for not making a good one, or at least a decent one. And I do have a few series in mind when I think of this. Not that I will necessarily name them, because I don't see any purpose in doing so. Now, I am always drawn in by an interesting power system because it could do so much more than merely an explanation for why this guy is shooting fire and this guy is shooting lightning. As you all know, every time I hit a different milestone of 100k sub intervals, I release a milestone special, which is a more personalized video aside from the more general analysis or satire I unleash upon the world. And this time, I wanted to talk about my top 10 power systems in anime because it's such an intriguing topic and it's something I'm always excited to talk about. Now, after compiling this list, I noticed something very interesting about power systems, and it is something I wanted to share because, honestly, it is low-key not so bonkers cool. So, this video will sort of be a top 10 power systems in anime, but I will also be covering how to make a power system fantastic and what the gimmick is in each power system that will make it truly great. The underlying theme for this video is a power system is only truly amazing when it doesn't just incorporate how different fighters can use different powers, but where the power system itself is contingent on the core themes of the series itself. Now, before actually mentioning my top 10, I would like to bring a few up so you can see what I mean. You have something like Naruto. Naruto is my go-to generic power system that I would like to explain. Not necessarily generic in the bad way, but generic in how it handles the inner aura within everyone and how it expresses itself differently with different people based on chakra natures and jutsu affiliations, as well as a breakdown between taijutsu, genjutsu, and ninjutsu, which is also great, tapping into psychological attacks, magic attacks, and physical attacks. So Naruto, on a baseline, does a fantastic job with this. My Hero Academia also does a similar thing, but it's far less training-based and far more luck-based. You're born with the quirk you get. Yes, you can improve it in certain ways, but no, if you're born with a quirk that makes your eyeballs have the ability to look at the inside of your head, you will never be able to shoot laser beams. I'm sorry. And the other power system I wanted to bring up, really it's sort of two, it's Norigamis and Soul Eaters, because both of them have a very similar idea of a partnership between either God and his weapon in Noragami, or a Soul Reaper and their Death Scythe in Soul Eater, where one part of the party becomes the weapon and the other part is the wielder. Now you have the ultimate focus on teamwork and growth as a team in order to succeed and get further, and they're both fantastic, but that's not really the point. All of these do a great job on the fundamentals of a brilliant power system, especially Naruto, because it incorporated the brilliance of the sexy jutsu, which is underrated in its originality, skill, and inspiration. It's in fact almost as inspiring as that time Gintoki from Gintama was explaining the philosophy behind why wetting your bed is one of the most wonderful feelings in the world. You don't need to get up to go to the bathroom, no. Just let it flow. The warmth. Okay, fine. Let's not get into the philosophy of Gintama. That's a different story. So for now, here is my top 10 power systems in anime. I am curious to hear your thoughts below, of course. And thank you again a million bazillion times. Damn it, 700,000 subscribers. That's actually insane. So here's my 7th milestone special. And through it, the secret behind a brilliant power system. In 10th place, I actually have Bleach. Now, Bleach's power system at first glance really seems like it is all over the place. And I myself was surprised that it ended up landing in the top 10 because I didn't exactly like that. Oh my god, Ichigo's so great because he turns out not only is he a human, but he's also a Soul Reaper, a Hollow, a Quincy, a Fullbringer, and literally every other species that the series introduced throughout the entire run. Very cool, Ichigo, very cool. So while I don't exactly necessarily like how Ichigo was built in that direction, the actual power system is pretty cool. I do like that there are different factions wielding different styles of powers, and I do like especially what a Zanpakuto represents. The Zanpakuto, the sword, is the culmination of one's being. So therefore, everyone has these inner battles with their reverse world spirit of their sword in order to grow further. Some of my favorite moments in Bleach are Ichigo against White Ichigo in his mind, teaching you that this sword, which is an extension of your being, is not just a weapon, but it is you, as well as being its own individual. It's an interesting dynamic, and I don't want to stress on this point, because honestly, I would like to move on a little bit. I want to get through this a slightly bit faster than my last milestone special, which was 40 minutes long, and also because I'm doing this more to get the point out what makes a power system great than the actual interesting dynamics within each power system. So, my 9th favorite power system of all time is from Maggie, the Labyrinth of Magic, as well as Maggie, the Kingdom of Magic, and Maggie, the Adventures of Sinbad, and every other Maggie offshoot ever. You should all watch/read Maggie. It's freaking amazing. Now, the way this world is set up is that you have these dungeons, and in order to get Jinn, which are basically genies that each have a different power and attach themselves to metal vessels of a king's candidate that was selected by a Maggie, if they beat a dungeon, which most of them end up dying, they will become a king's candidate, a candidate to become the king of the entire world. So this is, without sugarcoating it even a little, a battle for supreme rulership. It is a political war between many different countries, with many different sides rearing their ugly heads, coming up with different strategies in order to, well, freaking take over the world. The power system itself is interesting because now that someone has been selected as a king candidate and did conquer a dungeon, so they did obtain a metal vessel, they can then have people of their household, i.e. their royal guards or whatever, gain offshoots of this metal vessel's power in order to slowly but surely develop some sort of elite government under his rule. Now, the main character in the beginning of Maggie is this fellow named Alibaba. He is a king's candidate. He gets a djinn, but he doesn't, like, have a country or anything. He's just some random schmo walking around. But it's not the point. The point is he has the potential of becoming a king, and he does grow tremendously throughout the series. That is one part of the power system in Maggie. On the other hand, there are the Maggie themselves, as well as magic. Like chakra or nen or ki or whatever the hell, everyone has magoi within them. Metal vessels give them much more magoi and allow them to, you know, administer massive attacks, the likes of which most non-metal vessel use Maggies that go around selecting people to have the chance to become a king's candidate if they do conquer a dungeon. And now, the power system itself is interesting because once you conquer more than one dungeon, you can constantly swap from one djinn to the other depending on your scenario and make crazy combos in order to become really freaking badass. The power of fate is also very much at play, where someone can only really become a king if they were selected by a Maggie to become a king. And once someone was selected by a Maggie to become a king, they are now a target of every other king in the world. One of the world powers, the Ko Empire, has many members in their royal family with djinn, and they just continue to hunt down as well as try to recruit other metal vessel users. So the reason why I feel like Maggie's power system itself is phenomenal is because it's more than just a very interesting way to have badass battles. It's far more than that. It adds to the political setting that makes Maggie thrive altogether. And that is really sort of where I'm starting to get at when it comes to power system. Every power system has to enhance the actual themes of the world. This power system is built directly on the political nature of the Maggie universe, and that's what makes it great. So moving on to number 8, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. And that is the only correct way to pronounce the series. I don't want to hear any of this cultural appropriation Fullmetal Alchemist garbage. Hurts me to even say that, because Fullmetal Alchemist, more like Dull Metal Alchemist. Got him! Okay, I'm sorry, again, I'm ahead of myself. So the power system in Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is alchemy. It is the power to transmit and transmutate your energy into objects in order to break them down at the chemical level and shift them into something else, just like how real-world alchemy was supposed to work if it was actually a thing. What makes this power system so fascinating to me is more than just the intricate nuances that every different character and every different alchemist could think of to use their alchemy in different ways. You have Kimberly, who likes making explosions. You have Roy, who likes making fireballs. You have Ed, who likes transmuting metal goddamn everywhere. There's metal freaking everywhere. His full body is metal. Well, half his body is metal. I'm putting my foot down. This series should be called Half Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, but no one wants to listen to me. But what I like about the power system in Fullmetal Alchemist much more than its base parts is how it's used in regard to Ed's philosophy in life. So, as we know, in IRL, 3 really terrifying letters when put together, I know, when science began to really take off and discover more and more about the known world, where now you don't have to say, oh, it isn't magic after all. That's really where atheism started as well. Until you couldn't explain normal science and physics, there is no logical explanation aside from God. With alchemy, it's just taking science to the next level. It's looking at magic from a scientific standpoint, where, and this is why I think Fullmetal Alchemist 2003 starts off stronger than Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. In the first episode of the 2003 version, it takes place with Ed in Lior, where Father Cornello was being worshipped by everyone in the city, and Ed was saying, this man is a cheat, he is not exacting the will of God. And it's this very fascinating dichotomy throughout the entire series of Fullmetal Alchemist between science and faith that is one of the grandiose themes throughout. So, the fact that alchemy is completely science-based, no matter who is using whatever facet of alchemy they can come up with, it makes it far more compelling to not need to believe into the mystical, evil. And then you get the really creepy truth guy face with smile thingo that's somehow interdimensional when the guy tried human transmutation or something, and then you're like, oh my god, nothing equals a human soul. What is a human soul? I don't understand. And that's where the interesting dichotomy starts. A lot of these themes are present in Fullmetal Alchemist, and it's only pushed so much further by the foundation of what alchemy actually is. Aside from being just a fantastic battle style, it makes the fights all super exciting to see how they can use their imagination based on the physicalities of the world for combat. It's just freaking great. Number 7, no game, no life. I fell in love with this power system the absolute moment it was introduced. In this series, you have a wonderful isekai setting where the main character, who is known as Blank, and his brother and sister, both get teleported to an alternate world, and this world is governed by games. Wars are not through swords, shields, and murder. No, it's through outgaming whichever adversary you are facing in whatever arbitrary game you are challenging them in. Everything in the world of Discord is decided via games, whether it's rock, paper, scissors, it's chess, it's poker, or it's interdimensional IRL Beastmaster Fortnite, which is pretty much what they do at one point as well. Point is, the reason why this power system is beautiful is, aside from the fact that it makes every battle just so fun, is it has very much of that Yu-Gi-Oh-esque appeal. Now, the Yu-Gi-Oh power system is not exactly something I would call one of the greatest ever, because A, you have to watch it through the goggles that, if someone's trying to take over the world, you can't say, all right, Mr. Guy trying to take over the world with dark magic, I challenge you to a duel, and if I defeat you, you must stop taking over the world. You know what, Pharaoh, I agree, we should duel. Not exactly the most airtight plot behind the battle system, but still the duels are epic. In No Game, No Life, it makes sense why, if you want to conquer another country, challenge them to Go Fish, and somehow it'll be the most badass game of Go Fish you will ever see in your entire life. But the reason why this really appeals is, aside from the fact that you have the most goddamn epic battles of wit and skill that the imagination can come up with, and the fact that these simple seeming games have the most monumental stakes ever, it very much follows the deeper themes of the series, aside from the superficial ones that are just badass incarnate. The central theme of No Game, No Life is something that Sora says when he becomes the king of humanity. Not humanity, humanity, because they get copyrighted for using the word human or something. I'm not exactly sure what the philosophy was behind that, but not the point. When he gives his speech to humanity, the weakest race in Discord, where everyone else has these crazy magic powers or can live forever or are super agile, and they each have games based around their individual strengths. Humanity has nothing. They are just humans. And his speech that he gives is that humanity will not be wiped off the map. Humanity will rule the world. It will take over, and it will do this through its weakness. Humans are powerful because humans are weak. While they are up against no matter the adversary, they will have to use their cunning and intellect that, despite the fact that they are the ultimate underdog in their entire world, they can reach the peak of their reality through wit alone. Because they are the underdog, and because they are overlooked by every other race, that is why they will have to triumph. One of the main themes in No Game, No Life is that humans are strong because of their weakness. And I don't want to get into a whole philosophical discussion about the secret genius of No Game, No Life, because there actually is what to talk about behind this entire philosophy. The game mechanics itself completely match up to this, because in these games, they are at monumental disadvantages against any other race, and despite these disadvantages, they will use their weaknesses to their greatest strengths in order to win through charisma, through outthinking their adversaries, and through applying knowledge that they have that it's impossible that other people in this universe has in order to take the big fat W. These games are won by humans because they are weak, putting their skills up against a far greater force and coming out on top. The fact that all fights have to be done through games puts a massive dampener on the strong and gives a chance to the weak. And that is why No Game, No Life's power system is my 7th favorite power system in all of anime. Number 6, World Trigger. Now, a lot of people haven't watched World Trigger, and I think it's probably the least popular anime on this list, but that doesn't stop the battle system from being absolutely enthralling. On a superficial standpoint, you have everything you want in a battle system in World Trigger. Just like Chakra Net and Magoi and whatever the hell, there's Treon. Treon is this special energy within people in order for them to use their power, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Point is, there are these other dimensions that are bordering on theirs, and there's this organization called Border for that very reason, where they take mostly high school kids for some odd reason, and they train them the art of killing neighbors, which are these creatures from other dimension that are coming in and invading and stuff, and whatever. That's the basic premise. It ends up getting a lot deeper because there are so many more aspects to the battle system that at first you don't understand, like side effects. If someone has way too much Treon, they develop some extra power. Or black triggers. A black trigger, unlike regular triggers, which gives you one of Border's basic weapon styles, whether you're long range or close range or mid-range, whatever, there's just so many different battle styles you could take and so many different strategies you can come up with your squad depending on the battle style. Black triggers are far more powerful than your average trigger, and they are only created through someone actually sacrificing themselves in battle to give their ally a black trigger. They become the black trigger. It becomes a far more interesting battle based so much more on tactics, since for the most part you can predict what you're up against and you have to make do with what you have in the best way possible. As far as strategic battles, World Trigger is one of my favorite anime in this regard, and a lot of it is thanks to the battle system, which is built entirely around individual strength, but just as much on the strength of a team and what they can do working together. The battle system in World Trigger in itself is the most superficial aspect to the overall narrative, but at the same time it becomes a very central plot point because every dimension has a certain amount of black triggers and they're considered different levels of strength, and they end up needing to go dimension hopping to save captured users of black triggers. The most badass character, Jin, has to give up his black trigger for political reasons. The reason why I like the battle system in World Trigger so much is, aside from the fact that the battles are entertaining as all hell, the battle system itself is a very centralized point of the story, and I think that goes overlooked by the, 7 people that actually watched World Trigger and enjoys it. Number 5, Black Clover. Black Clover's power system is actually fantastic. As far as the generic shonen go, I think it does a better job than most. Because, let's say, Naruto or My Hero Academia, it's very focused on Asta wanting to become the Wizard King. You know, sort of like how Deku wants to become the greatest hero, or like how Naruto wants to become the greatest Hokage. Where have we heard that before? And in most of these growth-oriented shonen, you have a very basic style about the protagonist who's getting stronger throughout, and because he cares about his friends, I'm like borderline fake crying right now, will push himself to new limits of power in order to defeat the enemy. I know, very touching. Not as touching as Gintoki's speech about why pissing in your bed is one of the most serene and fantastic feelings you can ever experience, but hey, who am I to judge the beauty of bed pissing when I myself have not yet mastered the art, but practice regularly? That was a weird tangent. But anywho, in anime like My Hero Academia and Naruto, you have adrenaline boosts, and that makes sense. In our real world, if you're very passionate about something, for whatever reason, you can actually output more force than you would be able to if you were just casual about it. Adrenaline boosts make sense, damn it. They're not always plot armor, but they're sometimes plot armor. I'm not calling out anything in specifics like Kirito versus Gleam Eyes or anything, but plot armor is this very awkward moment where, because you care so damn much, you become so much stronger. And because you're developing as a character, again, almost crying here, you're actually going to be able to make no sense and take down opponents you shouldn't be able to. Now, on a narrative standpoint, it's very important to develop your characters. And if you're somehow developing your characters and at the same time using that development as a reason to become more powerful in-game, well, then that's wonderful. Now, most anime fail at combining these two very integral properties to a story. On the one hand, they're becoming stronger, and on the other hand, they're developing as a character. Very often, these two mesh into one as Deku manages to use an 100 million gazillion% smash when he's against Muscular because, you know, he really cares and stuff. Kota kicked him in the balls, so they have a connection, goddammit. But Black Clover's power system actually manages to cement the combination between individual growth and the power system, and that is the power of grimoires. Every grimoire has a bunch of pages, and in all those bunches of pages, you have a lot of spells. Now, how does any character learn new spells? Is it by training? Actually, no, it's not by training. Training can only hone the spells you actually know and use very basic techniques, like flying on broomsticks and whatever. The grimoire's pages get filled up by character development. What? Yes, Ghosh, the mirror dude from the Black Bulls. This guy only cared about himself and his sister, and that was it, and it's not at all weird and incesty. It's slightly weird and incesty, but that's not really the point, so we're just gonna gloss over that, okay? And because of that, his mirror only was always able to show him a reflection of himself, because he used mirror powers. And he was able to shoot lasers, refracting off the different mirrors to blast his opponents. But the point is, once he actually starts really caring about his teammates in the Black Bulls, he develops as a person by caring about others, and also, through that, another page of his grimoire gets filled, and now he can make clones of his teammates as well. What? Yes. It bases completely and entirely off individual character development. development. It's like that with Noelle that you're gonna see in a couple episodes in the anime, which I will not spoil. And it happens with Yami. It happens with dozens of characters in the actual show where their power development is based entirely off their character development. Melding these 2 points together was phenomenal, and I have not seen anything do as good of a job, except for my number 1. Number 4, Pokemon. Now, I'm gonna be brief, because most people don't read the Pokemon Adventures manga, which is, by the way, one of the greatest manga of all time. But the Pokemon battle system in the anime is just used as a sport. It's like Yu-Gi-Oh, sort of. I mean, why is every villain trying to take over the world not holding more than 6 Pokemon? If you're trying to take over everything, you should have a goddamn army of Pokemon. But no, it's like, oh, I only have my 6 Zubats that I'm gonna take over the world with. Very cool! In the Pokemon Adventures manga, Pokemon battles is not necessarily a sport like it is in the anime, but it's a life and death situation. You, as the trainer, are trying your absolute hardest to kill the enemy trainer that's a bad dude or a good dude, depending on what side you're on. Yes, they will use their Pokemon to protect themselves. You will use your Pokemon to attack them. You'll ambush them. You'll stab them. You'll freeze them to death. These are things that happen in the Pokemon manga. Pokemon battles in the manga are basically chess games where your opponent doesn't know exactly which pieces you're using, but his goal is to take down the king. You have to protect your king and take down the enemy king as well. And you don't know what they will be thinking and what they will be doing with their pieces because everyone has a slightly different power. Of course, the king can also attack, just like in the Pokemon manga, the trainer can sometimes attack. I'm not saying attack another Pokemon because I have a very bad experience with punching dragons. Just never worked out for me. But Bruno has like nunchucks and Pokeballs at the end of the nunchuck, so we'll throw out his Pokemon from the end of the nunchuck, which is much closer to the enemy trainer. So Hitmonlee gets sent out past Red's defenses to immediately try and take him down. Before Bruno starts his fight, the terrain he's on is a subterranean Onyx that is ready to just charge up and wreak havoc on everyone. Pokemon battles in the manga are goddamn chess games, and they're absolutely brilliant. But it's more than a chess game. Chess games, you don't actually have a connection with your pieces because this isn't No Game No Life. In a chess game, they are merely your pawns at your disposal. See what I did there? That was pretty genius, I know. But here, you care about them, they care about you, and you have to really work in sync with these Pokemon and know them very goddamn well, which stresses the friendship theme of Pokemon so much and makes every battle such a pleasure and heart-rending terror to watch, depending on who's kicking whose butt. Moving on, number 3, it's a tie. Even though I don't really do ties, this one, you'll see why I let it pass. It's One Punch Man and Mob Psycho. Both created by One, both have a very similar theme in their power system that makes each of them great, but Mob is coming from a slightly less satirical place than One Punch Man, for better and for worse. Both of these are purely based on the character's mental situation, which will be expressed in different ways. Seeing that both the focuses of these series are on the main character and their own version of depression, which stems from an entirely different thing. I've made videos on both. Go watch those. I'm not going to get into that here. Changes your entire outlook on the series to be on a much more mindful wavelength than the power-based shonen we're used to. The monsters in One Punch Man become monsters because they cave into obsession for some reasons, just like the psychic powers of psychics is based on the different mental predicaments they found themselves in. I really don't want to go in length on this because I will be talking about it more very soon, so we're just going to move on to number 2 right now and talk about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. On a superficial level, JoJo's is my favorite power system of all time. Every fight is more bombastic than the last. Everyone has a stand power, and everyone's stand power has very goddamn unique abilities that if you don't know what they are, you're screwed. But if you know what they are, you can come up with many multitudes of ways to defeat them. That's why when the Stardust Crusaders are on their journey, even though there's like 5 of them, and each of them have a moderate to great stand, except for Joseph, because Hermit Purple's a disaster. Even when they're up against one single adversary, that opponent is an absolute terror. Sick level. So much mind flippery is involved in every single fight, which is insane, because it's like, oh, this guy's stand can shoot fire, and this guy's stand can punch hard. And then you realize that you're getting into like this 4th dimensional chess in order to defeat your opponent. I mean, one of the most fantastic fights in the entire JoJo's Bizarre Adventure was when Jotaro was playing poker against Darby. Why are they playing poker? Well, that's because of many spoilery things that would make this fight way less epic, but it was epic regardless. The different creative ways to use these very diverse, wacky powers make makes the fights in JoJo's the best fights in anime. But the power system is more than that. It's more than just making the best fights in anime, which is like, you know, pretty cool also. I mean, not gonna lie, that's high praise. But let me use a stand as an example of this. And I'm gonna pick my favorite stand. Killer Queen. My favorite stand in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Now, Killer Queen's basic ability is that whatever it touches now becomes a bomb that it can detonate at any time. It's a very basic power that if you don't know what it does, you'll end up touching that doorknob. But Killer Queen already touched that doorknob, and kaboom! True story. But the beauty of Killer Queen is that it completely represents the stand user, Kita Yoshikage. And that is really how every stand works. Believe it or not, even though stands in JoJo's are some of the wackiest abilities ever, every single one of this is Purple Haze from JoJo's Part 5, being that on the outside, it's this nicely dressed thingo, but on the inside, it's an absolute terrifying creature that melts everything around it, which is not cool. Someone, by whacking him with a dictionary, and when he was pissed off that someone got a math equation wrong, he stabbed him in the face with a fork. So on the inside, this guy is a total savage nutcase, but on the outside, calm, composed genius. Everyone could look up to this fellow. That's a very simple, straightforward example. Kita Yoshikage is my favorite villain because on the one hand, he wants to live a very nice, happy, normal, not weird at all, non-standout life, but on the other hand, he's a serial killer going around blowing people up and stealing their hands for his weird fetish. These two ideals don't exactly mesh all of the time, but still, you get so involved in this character's psychology, you can almost understand where he's coming from, as crazy as that sounds. I made an entire video on Kita, I'm not gonna get into it, but the reason why Killer Queen is my favorite stand in JoJo's is because if it touches a doorknob, you will not see anything wrong with that doorknob. That doorknob will function like every other doorknob on the planet. But when Kita pushes that invisible button and detonates the doorknob, there is an explosion. And if you know my taste on Konosuba, you know I like explosions. That didn't sound very deep, did it? Now, this invisible bomb that Killer Queen can place on anything very much mirrors the invisible bomb that is Kita Yoshikage in society. Looking at society as it is, he's just this nice, happy-go-lucky dude who wants to live a normal, simple life. He is nothing out of the ordinary at all, functioning just like every other member of society is functioning. But when he decides to push that button, he is an explosion. He is a menace to society. And it's that very fascinating combination between every stand and their stand user that makes it a physical embodiment of their spirit in action form. I just have to say that on a superficial level, most fun fights in all of anime. But on a deeper level, for every individual character's various themes, it's also one of my favorite power systems of all time, definitely earning it its spot at number 2. My favorite power system, to no one's surprise, is Nen from Hunter x Hunter. And that's because of the same reason that everyone likes Nen. Nen is based on personality, depending on what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, and it also has these crazy conditions you could put upon yourself to make Nen stronger. And of course, all Nen is based on the psychology of any given user at any given time. Now, I was really struggling back and forth whether I wanted to put JoJo's stands above Nen on this list, but there's really no way. Entire book on how Nen works, and then a new chapter will come out flipping everything you ever thought you understood about Nen on its head, and it still somehow makes even more sense than before. Nen is based 1000% on the mental state of the Nen user at any individual given point in time. If someone is pushed to the brink and they are willing to give their own life for the fight, that will make a subconscious condition upon themselves, sacrificing themselves to give them that ultimate boost. Gon versus Pito is one of the greatest fights in anime because it's not just, oh, he was very passionate, so he had an adrenaline boost. No, it fits so perfectly within the folds of Hunter x Hunter's world. He subconsciously made a condition on himself, and his power boost was completely in tangent with his psyche at that given moment in time. I love taking a deeper look at the different psychological standpoints of the different characters in anime, and Nen is the embodiment of that psyche. Nothing really comes close to Nen, so I don't think anyone's surprised that it's my number 1. But now, to wrap up nicely, the overarching theme of this entire video and why I decided that I would place these power systems above any other is very simply because not just that it has a gimmick that makes it more stand out than something like Chakra from Naruto, but every single one, in some shape or form, is in itself a microcosm of the greater story. Whether it's the thematic elements of the story, the psychological elements of the story, the political elements of the story, or the overall plot itself. The power system could be more than just a means to do epic battle, but it could be something that really evolves the entire world you're in. I really only thought of this as an integral point to power systems while I was working on this video, so honestly, thank you guys for bombarding me on Twitter asking for my milestone special. Very epic. Link to my Twitter in the description. And even more epic, thank you really so goddamn much for 700,000 subscribers. I can't even fathom how I got this far by just sarcastically memeing about anime. It's actually pretty nuts. But I am glad that I kind of made this little breakthrough. If y'all thought of it already yourself, I mean, power to you. Very awesome. But I'm always glad to see why I love something. I know it sounds crazy, but I end up liking everything I talk about so much more after I actually talk about it. Maybe I'm the nutcase here. Thank you all so much for giving me this opportunity. Let me know in the comments what you want on the 800,000 subscriber milestone. If we get there, that would be very cool. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Remember to read Pokemon Adventures and to have yourselves a most